Today I sat down with Andy Hooper, the CEO of Global Ecom Experts. They are the go-to when you're looking to expand your brand into the UK and Europe. We had a really interesting conversation that touched on a ton of different topics, from joint ventures to the complexities of growing a team. He now has a team of about 50, through to what it is to start up and what it is to take that leap into entrepreneurship and finding a safe way to transition into taking on that big risk of building wealth and giving up your time and that cash payment to have a long-term vision. As always, I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. Welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I talk to world-class professionals on what it takes to scale successful businesses. I dive deep asking questions to people who are running unicorn businesses, to raising funds, to buying businesses, mergers and acquisitions, IP and patent law, what is to manage performance management. I mean, the list goes on. The idea really is, how do I create knowledge and learning for you guys listening in? And of course, myself, getting the floor with people who I, in many cases, would never dream to share a room with. Before we jump into the episode, I've got to give a special thank you to our sponsors. Firstly, over at Global Wide Advisors, a leading digital consumer products investment bank focused on optimizing the sales process. An incredible team, always happy to pick up the phone and educate you or anyone about the sales process and what you should really consider, and can obviously help take you to market or even acquire businesses. I ring them for just about everything these days. Us over at Multiply Me, we are the end-to-end executive search and HR function into the Philippines, helping find better talent and onboarding them effectively. And last but not least, Escala, our management consultancy focused on process improvement, where we help build better systems for your business. That's all the ads you're going to get from me, ladies and gentlemen. The rest is all about learning. I hope you really enjoy and get as much out of these sessions as I do, sitting face to face with some of the world-renowned leaders in their respective fields, asking them the tough questions that they're not often asked. All right, Andy, I know we've tried a bunch of times to set this one up, but I'm finally really happy to welcome you to an episode of Successful Scales, mate. How you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. I've had a chance to speak to a couple of guys on your side of the pond, but I know that you guys really position yourselves as the access point into Europe, and you guys have a pretty serious operation over there. So getting into it, and before I start ruining your backstory and everything and all the incredible work that you do, I'm gonna pass it over to you and let you tell those listening a little bit about your background and obviously what you're up to today.
Yeah, wicked. Thank you. So my name is Andy Hooper. I'm the CEO of Global E-commerce Experts, and we essentially successfully expand e-commerce brands into Europe. And we're not going to, that's Europe, that includes the UK. The UK is still part of Europe, although we've had a little disagreement about the European Union, which is slightly different. So we successfully expand brands into Europe. We take brands that are looking to expand their business and to basically put everything under one roof. So when you're looking to expand into a new market, what happens is that you need 20 different agencies to work with. And the problem with that is it's just too damn complicated. And what you want to do is work with one agency that knows exactly what they're doing, how to do it, where to do it, and when to do it, and just tee it all up for you. And that's what we've aimed for over the last 5 years. And that's where we've got to in the last year. Finally, we managed to get everything under one roof. So basically, anyone who wants to take their brand, e-commerce brand, I should say, into Europe, then we go to Expert, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. So, I mean, I know that's been the last 5 years of your life, and I want to hear a little bit more about that journey, because I know we've had many conversations now about how you've brought that 3PL under one roof. And I think it's a really strategic move for you. But I mean, where did it all start, mate? Give me a little bit of the secret sauce, the background. How did you end up with this, this brand that like I've read and like we've spoken about, we're talking about thousands of brands that you've helped expand. I mean, that is no small feat. So you don't get to seeing successes like that without sort of those fundamental building blocks. So take me on a journey, if you will.
Yeah, so I think we're up to about 2,200 brands. I think now that we've expanded. So we you say we know what we're doing, but you're right that it didn't all start there. And if you'd said to me, I don't know, 6 years ago, let alone 10 years ago, you're gonna build an e-commerce agency, and it's gonna have warehouses and VAT and product, I laughed at you. Like, I probably would have laughed at you. But it's strange how, as you go through life, opportunities arise, your methodology changes, your ability to think differently comes about. And I've always been the sort of person who's happy to think, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to learn that? Go learn it and do. And I think so. Basically, about 50. In fact, to tell you when it was, so 2008, we had the last financial crash, and that financial crash, I was working, I was employed, I was earning 40 grand a year. I had a company car, everything was fine. Don't get me wrong. I had a baby on the way. I had. Sorry, my phone's going. I'm just turning the bloody thing off. Sorry. So I had a baby on the way. We were just about to get married. I had financial crash everywhere, and I had a bit of let's say 3 grand on a credit card. Like, didn't have much at all. We're talking like a small amount of cash from the sums that we deal with on a day-to-day basis now. But when you're limited to the amount that you can earn, that's a problem. And that really is the issue that I had. So 2008, basically the big problem was I had no money, and the banks were coming around us, for a few grand here and a few grand there. And I thought, I'm never, ever going to be in this position in 10 years' time when there's another recession. At no point do I ever want that to happen again. So at that point, I was like, right, let's do something. And I went through a whole load of business ideas along that journey to make that happen. But that was really the catalyst to making it happen, that 2008 crash.
I think that's a really interesting point that you bring up there, or sort of the realization that, there is, and I'm a huge advocate of being an employee. I think you learn so many invaluable skills, and you get to learn on someone else's dollar, which is a beautiful thing. I spent 10 years working for agencies, and, I don't regret a single decision. I made a ton of mistakes and made them a lot of money, but also made a lot of mistakes. Right. And hopefully that leads into making less, when you go off on your own. But to your point, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs looking to make that leap in that journey, you sort of really took the time to assess what's important to you and what is critical. And you sort of leapt in, head first, and you really took that dive in. And I think for a lot of people, it can be a little bit daunting. It can be a little bit stressful. But how'd you approach sort of coming up with the business ideas?
To be honest, I've always been sort of lucky in that way. I've never had to sit there and think, I need a business idea. What am I going to do? How am I going to? The ideas just come. I used to say that I'm sort of, engulfed with ideas, that I'm almost crystallized, with the opportunity.
Yep.
And, it was more a case of which is the right opportunity to proceed. So we did, after that 2008 piece, we bought stuff from China and sold it on Amazon. We flipped stuff on eBay. We used to look after people's dogs when they were going on holiday and look after them so that they could go on holiday, and we got paid for that. But the stroke of genius that really started it all was that my dad was photographing my cousin's wedding. And I went along, I had a camera, I was pretty average, but I enjoyed taking a few hobby photographs, quite enjoyed taking photos of people, and went and assisted my dad photographing the wedding. The photos came out, right? A friend saw them and said, I don't really want a photographer for my wedding, but I've seen what you've done. Can you take a few happy snaps at my wedding? Did that. And before I knew it, I was like, I've got a business idea here. And when I say a business idea, it's hardly revolutionary, but people get married every day. People want a photographer at their wedding. and there's people for every budget. And so I set up a wedding photography business, and that was really my first business. It was the first thing that gave me the opportunity to earn some extra cash, build a website, do some marketing, do some ads, Facebook ads, social ads, Google ads, a whole load of stuff. And that was the first real introduction to a business.
Yeah, and I think it's a really healthy or a really clear driving way forward to sort of take that leap. And it's not hugely risky in terms of you don't have a huge staff and payroll behind you. You don't have all this like ensuing risk and crippling debt attached to it. It's a safe bet, but it can grow pretty quickly. I mean, we were talking a little bit before. I'm a hobbyist photographer myself, and after I started taking some photos, people were like, "Would you mind?" And it also became like a couple of mates. I gave them like as a wedding gift, like the day or the lead up into their wedding. Like I went and did photo shoots for them, and it was awesome little things. So yeah, I can acutely relate. But it doesn't need to be all or nothing, I guess, is the point I'm making here when you're taking those first steps.
And I think that the thing there is, it was first steps, but it was also, all right, I had the cost of a camera, which I already had. I had the cost of a website, which in real terms doesn't cost you anything. Social media doesn't cost you anything. But what it does cost you is because you've got the stuff around you, but what you've got is time. And it's about, I used to be up to 1 or 2 every night. I ended up putting a desk in the loft of our house. And in the loft in the UK, in the summer, it's boiling hot. And in the winter, it's freezing cold. And I had heaters up there and fans up there, and I really cut my tooth, if you like, on building something out that didn't earn hundreds of thousands of pounds, but gave me some pretty core skills on what business looks like. I mean, I did a budget. I mean, you don't really need a budget. You just work out what people can afford to pay you and then cut your cloth accordingly. There's no P&L really. It's not really that sophisticated. But what it does do is it gives you some pretty decent skills to start off with minimal investment.
And again, those skills, those fundamental building blocks are absolutely paramount for that ongoing success. I mean, I speak a lot about the fact that I'll never, I have very little interest in bootstrapping a business ever again, because now I'd rather buy time. But if I went back 5 years ago, I had a lot more time and I was happy to learn and cut my teeth, and, time was less valuable to me. But as time goes on, you start to make those shifts. So, fast forward, how do you end up building, a nearly 50-person strong agency in 5 years and where you sit today? Like what's that evolution look like?
So I was doing I then left work and got set up a sports consultancy business where I was helping sports businesses with marketing and strategy and all this sort of stuff. And I was talking to my accountant one day, and essentially some ideas started developing, and I started putting 2 and 2 together. And before you know it, I've sort of come up with this idea of actually, in conjunction with some people around me, coming up with this idea of, oh, that could work. How does that work? Or what does that? And the idea was to really build into a growing market. I had a 3D printing business as well, where we 3D scanned people and printed them on cake toppers and stuff like that. But what was happening is that the 3D printing market is slightly behind. It needs to be another 5 years. Whereas the e-commerce market was really growing, or still is really growing. And I was looking at a business that I could scale rather than just be a one-man band, because it was great doing it for me and I was earning great money, but it was never going to be a 7, 8, 9-figure exit. There was never going to be, more than 100 or 150 grand. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. That's pretty epic. In fact, at times I might go back to that because that actually seems quite attractive at times.
Mate, you're preaching to the choir. I always say, if I ever wrote a book, it would working title would be "The Shit No One Told You About When You Didn't Sign the Waiver." You know, the stresses that you have today running an operation at the size and magnitude that it is it's a totally different level of accountability and responsibility and stress. And, you know, having clock in, clock out, you know, of course, I'm going to care. If I'm working for someone else, I'm going to care. But there's a limit to what that looks like, right? With this, you don't have those same luxuries. I think one of the important things, or one of the key topics you sort of bring up here is, you know, there's a way of generating a lot of cash and a lot of money quickly. And that's, you know, being a high paid salary employee. And then there's the other thing that's longer term, and that's building wealth. And that's that transition that you've clearly identified and you've made. Let me ask you this question. How long was it till you could pay yourself a salary that was livable in the new venture?
Yeah, do you know what? It wasn't actually that long. And, you know, because I'd had other businesses, I had a transition. So I set this one up whilst the others were still going. So it wasn't like I cut myself off. So I started doing 1 day a week and then dropping 1 day there. Then it was 2 days and then dropping. So basically what happened was, over a period of about, 2000, let's say 16, 17, when we really started, I was really sort of transitioning from one to the other. So actually what happened is I probably, it wasn't until probably year 2 when I really started taking, you know, a salary. But up until that point, I was transitioning from one to the other, which made it doable. So it wasn't like I went without, or, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was times there was a bit tough, but it wasn't like we were on, you know, we were lucky because we already had a couple of other businesses was generating income. And then this one was building up. And this one was scaling so quickly that actually it was cash generative. It's a business that does generate cash, but at the same time, to grow, you've got to reinvest that all the time. And we've always, up until this year, you know, well, including this year, sorry, we've reinvested everything we've had. Everything has gone. I mean, we've taken a salary, or I've taken a salary, but we've reinvested everything to basically give it the opportunity to scale and grow, where we've bootstrapped it ourselves. You know, we haven't taken any finance. You know, no one's given us any cash. It's literally all the money that we've generated and earned.
Mate, it's my favorite people to talk to, because it's just like us. We've gone that same route. And I think that, again, you know, that's to say, like, there's a beauty about bootstrapping a business too. You don't have anyone who is sitting over your head saying, right, your business needs to look a particular way. And if it's venture capital, you know, it's 3 to 5 years, we're in and out, and there's an objective. You could run this operation for the next 10, 15 years if you want, and then have that big payday and continue to live a great life throughout this whole journey. So, you know, again, I think it's really tough at the start, but it seems like you've figured it out. But once you get enough momentum, it becomes a totally different story. And it sounds like you're sort of heading into that path right now.
Well, I don't know if you ever figure it out. I think you're definitely always adapting and overcoming, because the skills that get you to 100 grand, £1 million, you know, 10 million pounds are all different. You know, and from 10 to 100, again, will be different. You know, that ability to adapt and change and tweak. You talked about earlier about, you know, the different process you go through, whereas when you're starting out, you bootstrap, you're watching YouTube videos, you're learning how to do stuff. You know, you then get to a point where you're like, okay, well, I've got a bit of cash, I can pay someone to come and assist me, or I can pay to do a course or whatever. And then it might be, well, actually, I'm getting to the next level. I now need to do things we're looking at now, sort of big groups of people where you get together and really have your masterminds with people in like-minded groups. You know, all of those things start becoming feasible, but you can't do them to start off with. You know, you can't afford £50 course, let alone, you know, a 50 grand mastermind. Like it just doesn't match. So it's really important that as you develop, you're surrounding yourself, I think, with people that are where you're aiming for. And you're surrounding yourself with people who are, I don't want to say where you've been in a derogatory way, but in a place where you can then support and give them a lift up and support them as they're growing. And you hope that there's someone above you where you're aiming to get to that can give you a little jimmy up. So you're always trying to support others in the hope that there's someone there supporting you at the same time, And to me, that's really, really important.
Yeah, spot on, spot on. I mean, you have a podcast yourself, just like I do here. And the whole objective is, how do you take these lessons and how do you give them to people that aren't able to pay that $50,000 a year mastermind or that 2-day event that's going to cost you the same thing, but you're going to learn invaluable things. But you had to get to a point to understand that as a business, we can justify an investment like that because that investment is going to yield an ROI, whether it's personal development and growth, whether it's relationships and business connections, or, whether it's just really seeing the secret sauce of what it takes to go from 10 to 30 million and 50 to 100 million and whatever that looks like. Like you said, very, very different skill sets. And, I'm trying to learn, I guess as fast as you are as to what it is to have so many people. And, the game shifts from your time and your investment and your ability to generate to how do I find the right partners and the right people internally to really move the needle, and how do I then maintain and steady that ship and say, well, the vision looks like this a year from now, 3 years from now. What are all the necessary things and the key people and the key relationships that we need in order to achieve that? So I'm just going to jump straight into this question because you brought it up before we hit record, but something that's really hot on my heels right now, and we're working on a joint venture ourselves. I think that it's something that not a whole lot of people are even aware of, and you seem to have, again, like us. I'm probably a few steps behind you, and I started the podcast to learn from really successful and insightful people that have been there before. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you've got going on when it comes to joint ventures and how that's impacting you and your business.
Yeah, I think there's lots of different ways of doing a business, running a business, having a successful partnership, whatever that looked like. When we looked at what we want to do, we want to successfully expand brands into Europe. That's what we do. And a crucial part of that is shipping. Shipping, whether it be containers from Asia, the States, or air freight, or whatever it happens to be, in order for our clients to succeed, they need that piece of the jigsaw. And the advantage when people are in your warehouse, you're doing their business, their VAT compliance, their product compliance, they're running their Amazon accounts for them. When you're doing all of that for them as one package, actually the cost that you can do the shipping for is reduced because you're making margin elsewhere. And the biggest cost center that clients have right now is shipping products. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to have a shipping company. We looked at 3 options. We bring into the business an experienced shipping manager and someone who knows what they're doing, but we have no idea whether it'll work or not. We don't know whether they're the right person. We don't know whether they've got the right skills. There's a lot of unknowns with that. We then looked at, do we buy a company? Let's buy, we could buy a shipping company. We could take that over and we would have everything needed. The problem with that we found was that there's no one doing e-commerce specific that works. But if they were doing it really well and weren't interested in selling. And if you took on someone else, they had a whole load of other services that just weren't relevant to us. And I didn't really want the headache of that. So in the end, what we did is we spoke to a couple of other people and looked at them and said, well, look, you're the shipping experts. You've got the shipping company. You do freight forwarding. You do freight. That's what you do. We do the e-commerce bit. We've got the clients. And what we then looked at was, finding the right person. We found the right company, and we basically did literally 50-50. They bring the skills and the expertise of running a shipping business, doing containers, doing customs, all of the problem solving that goes with getting widgets from A to B. And they've never done e-commerce, but they did a lot of, or they still do a lot of, boats, Sunseekers, things like this, right? And it's very similar, although the product's different. It's someone's personal thing, right? When you're shipping stuff for e-commerce sellers, you're shipping their kid's inheritance. And when you're shipping someone's kid's inheritance, they really care about it. If you're dealing with a shipping manager from, I don't know, a well-known brand, a clothes brand, JD Sports or Boots, and I'm trying to think of some brands you've got over in Australia, but people know what I mean. You deal with a shipping manager, the products are relevant to them. It's a very different transaction. So it's important that the person we did a JV were aligned with that way of thinking and could understand that, although they didn't know e-commerce, they were aligned with broadly our way of thinking and way of doing things. And that's where we ended up with. So we ended up doing the JV because it just worked better for us. I didn't want to buy a business. And that way, by doing a JV, it doesn't cost you anything other than time. So when you come back to bootstrapping again, well, we've built a very successful shipping business in 6 months. And when we look at the numbers we're doing on that business alone, now some of that is totally inflated by the cost of containers right now. But we're going to approach 5 million almost, possibly in our first year. That's crazy. But all that is they've got the skills, we got the clients that need it, and we're able to offer very competitive prices because people are doing other stuff with us. And that's where we've been able to make that work.
Yeah, it's an amazing strategy, and one where, again, we've had a lot of conversations, you and I, and I've spoken to your team and your general manager, and it's that mindset of creating win-win scenarios where you have access to literally thousands of brands that you've helped grow into the UK and across Europe, and leveraging those relationships and being able to come to someone who has, let's say 80% of the way there, working through your processes, working through what's critical. And all of a sudden you've turned your business, you've added a huge amount of revenue, and, hopefully there's a bit of margin in there for you too, with not a whole lot of movement. And what you've done is you've enhanced that experience for your end customer, where they've said, right, I no longer even have to think about anything that is, largely terrifying. And so your perceived value in market is increased. You haven't had to build from scratch. You haven't had to build anything than just how you guys work together. And you've created this 50-50 win-win scenario. And I think too many people, going back to that point, I don't know about you, I'm not interested in bootstrapping, but leveraging, you've created leverage, and you're leveraging that leverage, and it just becomes this absolutely compounding opportunity to have, all these other additional revenue streams through the exact same client or customer profile. It's brilliant.
I think the key there is that, everyone's in everything for a different reason. My reason is about basically doing things with people I enjoy, right? That really is the whole purpose of what we do, is about doing it because we enjoy doing it. Not, yes, obviously we're a business and we need to be profitable and we need to make cash, but we want to do that because we want to help more brands expand. We took on a new warehouse this year. We had to put £1 million worth of investment into it. We're reinvesting all the time, and we've got to do another one of those to extend our European ventures this year. So when you start looking at all those things, business for me is about doing things with people that excite you, that's fun. And, when we looked at the JV specifically, actually, we weren't in it because we wanted to make money out of that. We wanted to solve the problem with our clients and work with some people that already knew what they were doing, that were well versed with it, but we could have fun with at the same time.
Of course. Of course. And again, when you put your lens on and you look at how is this going to impact the clients that I'm here to service and support, and you understand, again, taking out these real complexities, VAT, compliance, logistics, freight forwarding, inventory management, and then everything that is to actually grow the Amazon brand inside of the UK and throughout Europe. Again, me as a potential end client or customer, that's the dream, right? I have to speak to one account manager. They're going to handle absolutely everything. I don't have to think through it. So it's really, if you focus on the value creation, then, the money should always be, in my opinion, the byproduct of whatever it is you're creating. And, I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think people value that more than anything else. we're here to help people successfully expand. That's what we want to do. That's how we want to do it. And in order to do that, we need all these products and services to do that with the client knowing it's all under one roof. The reality is, I know agencies that consult on how to expand to Europe, and they charge tens of thousands of pounds to do that. Well, if we just do that for free because it's all just part of the service. Like, we want to succeed. You just need to do this, this, and this. Like, people overcomplicate these things because then they can charge more money for it. It's about how can you make everything as simple as possible. And when you're talking to brands in the States or Australia or wherever they are outside of Europe for us, making things easy and simple is the key strategy to them winning. Because, when they say, I want to expand my brand, but to be quite honest, it's a bit of a headache and I haven't got the time and all the rest of it. And you go, well, look, it's all under one roof. Here's the cost. It's one package, job done. They go, geez, that's easy. Actually, it's cheaper to do it that with us and get it done than it is to pay an agency over there to consult with them to talk about it. And it's the value. It's all about giving value to the client and how easy they can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't have put it better myself. So tell me a little bit about, when it comes to, you've been in this game for 5 years, right? And you've gone from, maybe just yourself or a very small team in year one to, what is now about 50 people. I mean, from you as, the driving force behind the vision of the business and going after opportunities like this joint venture, I mean, what are some of the key complexities, or what are some of the things or the lessons that you've learned along the way that, anyone listening in and isn't quite there yet, whether they're running a 7 or 8 figure brand themselves and they've started to hire their first 5 or 10 people, whatever that looks like. I mean, anything that really sort of hits you smack in the face and says, if I'd just known that, someone had just shed a little bit of light on it, it would make my life a whole lot easier. Anything that stands out to you?
Well, there's about 3 dozen. We could probably spend a week on that. Yeah. But I would say that the key things for me are, there's a few different bits. Someone's told me, do something once and get paid for it forever. So you do it once, you train someone how to do it, and then you let them crack on with it. I think that's really, really important. But it's also important to review that and go back and check it. So one of the things that we fell down on this last Q4 was that we've moved into a new building. It's broadly 10 times bigger than what we had before this time in 2021. 2020, sorry. So we get to Q4 2021 and, we were just we're talking to our clients, just send everything. We're here for you. We're here to support you. What we hadn't done properly was forecast with our clients what they might be shipping. So we don't know if someone's going to send us 1 container or 100 containers. Now, when you start thinking about staffing that, there's a problem. So, we're broadly at 50 full-time employees right now. Well, we had another 50 temps with us over the Q4 period. So all of a sudden, you've got this situation, pressure cooker, where systems and processes that were fit 6 months ago are no longer fit. The volume of business that you now have increased to, you don't have the staff to cater for that because you had no idea what was coming. So if I look at where we've just been, one is important, really, really important to review what you've done, because what we've done is we've managed to review that and look at everything's happened, so we can never be in the same place ever again. We'll have a different problem, but we won't have the same problem. And so the key things are you have a system and a process for everything. And when something changes, the system and process is updated. And you cannot scale a business in any way, shape, or form without the systems and processes written down. And then what we've introduced, which this is the golden nugget, if you like, for me, is that when a complaint comes in or when something doesn't work, it doesn't have to be a complaint, but let's say that a wrong pallet gets shipped out with the wrong courier. That happened to us, right? Someone's coming to pick up a pallet and someone sent the wrong pallet with the wrong collection company. It happens, right? No problem, all resolved. But actually, what we've now got is a process that, okay, what was the issue? What was the near miss? What was the complaint? What was the problem? What does the current system and process say? And where did it fall down? What do we now need to change in that system and process so that that can never happen again? And when do we train the team on how to do that? Add to systems and processes operation manual. So that's probably a couple of different bits there. You know, the do something once, get paid forever is amazing and great when you first start and you've only got 3 people. And it's great when you've probably got 5 people. But as soon as you've got any more than that, if the system and process change, you're not close enough to know that's changed. And therefore, you have the system and process, but the way of reviewing that and changing that.
Music to my ears, mate. That is that's what I sit here preaching day in, day out. You know, if you're going to build a scalable business, you have to have your systems and processes and your people really tapped into what that looks like. And as things change and need to be updated, I mean, when you're at the size that you are, you cannot have your arms around every aspect of the business in any form of real granularity. And so to have any real meaning, you have to be able to take that, you know, 10,000 or 30,000 foot view and understand, well, what's not functioning and understand how the process or that experience is broken down. But I think that tip that you gave, you know, if a pallet gets misshipped, I think that's, you know, that really is the golden nugget, right? Is when a mistake is made, it's that, you know, post-mortem autopsy of like, what went wrong? How do we now integrate that into our process? And how do we then make sure that this is, you know, a one-time mistake and a valuable, hopefully not too costly, but a valuable mistake that can then, you know, continue to be fruitful moving forward.
And for me, there's a couple of bits that come out there. You know, we've got lots of clients, and the advantage of that is that they've all got 3PLs in other parts of the world. And every time I speak to them, they say to me, Andy, out of all the 3PLs we deal with, yours was the least problematic. And they said that's for 2 reasons. Not that we don't make mistakes, because, you know, we want to eradicate, we're very clear, we also want to eradicate the mistakes. But there's 2 things. One, we absolutely care that we made the mistake. And, you know, I will get on the phone call, Ricky's the GM will get on the phone call, the department managers will be on the phone, you know, apologizing to the client. But before we've got to that, what we're saying to the client is, look, here's the mistake, here's the problem, here's what's happened, and here's what we've done so that it can't happen again. And people understand that mistakes happen. And as long as they don't happen every single day on everything you do, if you own it, you apologize, you put your hands up, and you show them what you're doing to improve, and you care, you will win the hearts and minds of your customers. And that will go a long way and give you a little bit of leverage. I don't mean leverage in a bad way, or you leverage a client, but in a way that the client will know that you care and you don't want to make those mistakes. And I think that doesn't matter to us whether that's, you know, making a mistake on you know, the pick and pack, or whether we've missed something on a VAT return, or, you know, everyone's human. Like, everyone's human. And everyone makes mistakes. And I also want to say is that I didn't talk about systems and processes just because I'm speaking to Yannick. That wasn't.
I'm not paying him.
No, there's no deal being done here. That's not part of it.
For sure. No, I appreciate that. You know, and that's just it though. Again, it's the same things that always come up. You know, I feel like so fortunate that I've had the opportunity to interview now. You know, it's probably nearing 80, 90 people that I've had sit in the seat and interview. And I've sat with a lot of incredible guys just like you on their podcasts and been able to speak to really high level people who really understand it. And it's the same things that continue to come up. And, you know, systems and process, that's one of them, but it's, you know, it's the right people in the right seats. It's understanding your finances. It's understanding, you know, what is your actual operation? I mean, you know, how do you actually drive sales? What is that push pull when it comes to, I mean, I don't know about you. But Andy, I've definitely had 3-4 times in the business where we drove sales and then we had to stop because you don't want to see I had a guy speak to me yesterday and he said, I've got 25 businesses. We want to take them all through Escala's process. And I just said, honestly, mate, I would love to work with you, but you would break our business if we won 25 clients tomorrow. It's not realistic. Like, you never want to compromise on quality. And like you said, we're all human here. And I think one of the really important things as a service provider is that we're all human, and it's unbelievable when like the smallest minute thing goes wrong, and people can be so nasty. Even when you're forthright, you come through it. Like what I think people who live in the e-commerce space where they sell to sort of like, an avatar that is this faceless persona at volume, it's a very different thing where you come in and, you have a crack at someone's business because of like one minor detail that went on. I think that like, if there's one thing I've learned, like, sure, be forthcoming and, it's impossible to get it right 100% of the time. But, at the end of the day, it's not businesses doing business with businesses. It's people doing business with people. And, really just having that level of humility in that conversation and understanding, like, everyone's trying to do their best job. It's like, I don't absolutely crack the whip on someone that makes a mistake internally. That's not how people learn. And that's not, when a pallet is sent the wrong way, no one's sitting here saying, who did that? And, off with his head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that comes down to your values. So, if you've got your business mission, values, culture, however you want to wrap it up, one of ours is no blame. It doesn't matter what's going on. We don't blame anyone. What we do is we look at what happens and how we can make sure it doesn't happen again. Because as soon as you change that from, well, that was your fault, to, okay, what happened? How do we make sure it doesn't happen again? It doesn't matter whose fault it is. And people taking ownership over their own stuff means they're not blaming each other. You've got to give people that accountability, depending on what stage of the business you're in, or depend on, you talk about having the right people in the right place. I mean, we went through a period last year where we recruited department managers when, quite honestly, we didn't necessarily 100% need all of them. But I knew by having them now, and now being in 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months, that what's happened is that we can now scale quicker because we're at a different stage, because we've got experience in that, understand the business, they understand what's going on, and nurturing those people where you can. The problem is you're so busy, especially in e-com, everything's the million mile an hour. So it's keeping up with that, and understanding people is critical. And that's not always my strongest piece.
But I mean, you highlight a really critical point. It's like, it comes down to that forward planning. Like, if you hire for the person that you need today, the reality is that process, and, I live through it all the time. We get people coming in saying, I needed a PPC or supply chain or logistics manager yesterday. And it takes time to find good people, especially ones that are employed. It might take 30 days to get you a top 3. And from that, they have to resign from their company. You're looking at a 2-month turnaround realistically to get that person. So, it comes back to managing cash flow and projections and bringing those people in. I'm sure now you're sitting there and saying, right, that was the best decision I made, hiring ahead of time, getting them integrated, and 6 months on, when they actually start to produce true value, that was the investment. And that's why you're taking home probably a lot less than you'd like to be, because you're putting it all back into the business for those exact decisions.
Well, exactly. We did a numbers the other day because we were committed to not taking any managers on. And we can take on another 60-ish people before we need to take another manager on. So, all right, managers leave. I'm not saying they're not going to leave, but, if we look at the structure we have, we can take on another 60 people before we need another manager, because we can put them and deploy them. And we know, based on what we're doing, we'll need those 60 people this year. So it's not like I'm thinking this is 1, 2, 3 years time. Based on the numbers, the growth, on what's happening right now, we could burn through those by July. You just don't know exactly how everything's going to pan out. It's one of those where, if every deal comes off, we'll need 600, not 60. So you coming back to sales, we've never done we've got a sales team, but we haven't done a day's worth of outbound sales in our life. Everything's partnerships. And everything has been with a partner. Every client referral is 80% of our business is referral, 20% is business through the website, but we think still comes from partners somewhere that we can't measure.
Yep.
You get someone over to us the other week, I think. An introduction come over, you're introduced, you send it over. That's how we work, because, I'm a relationship person. The reason my e-com products were never £10 million markets was because I just weren't interested in selling widgets that I had no relationship with someone at the end. It's not that I don't enjoy the buzz of selling. I love selling, but a service. Like I love customers when they email you and say, that went really, really well. Thank you. Right. But at the same time, when they email and say that didn't go so well, I'm like, right, what do we need to do to solve that? Like, I just, and everyone wants something different, don't they? But that's, I guess, where I got to.
Absolutely. Look, I think that's for me as well. I think that it's all about the people that I get to work with every day, the people that I get to interact with and build these relationships with. And, it would be criminal. I know you've talked a little bit about, what you guys do and how you help expand, but mate, before we hang up today, I speak to so many people that need to expand into Europe. So I'd love to just have you, what's the best way? Who do they get in touch with at the agency? What are the key services? Like, please, it's such a needed solution. And we work with probably 80% out of the US, and everyone's trying to expand. Obviously, the value that creates to their business is tremendous. So please.
Yeah. Okay. So if you've got a brand and you're probably doing upwards of £500,000 in your dollars in your main marketplace or your main country, then you're probably in a decent position to expand. That's the first thing to say. If you're doing less than that, it doesn't mean to say that you can't expand, but the time and resource that it takes and the investment, like as we've already talked about, you can bootstrap it yourself and you can go and do it. The reality is there's a whole load of complications with doing some of this stuff, and you just need to pay some people to do some stuff. That's the reality. Or when you get to that sort of level, you're at the stage where you can start going, well, actually, I need someone who can do it all under one roof. So whether you need to understand the market, get the market research, we can cater for that. If it's the compliance of your business or the product, we do that. If it's understanding what's the best marketplace and strategy for you to be on, that's us. If you need to ship your products and get the customs done, we can do that. Obviously, we've got the warehouses we've talked about both in the UK and Europe. We've got an Amazon agency in-house where we support Amazon agencies, where Amazon clients to expand their brands. You haven't got someone internally that can do it. You don't want to do it yourself in the EU. We can run your EU store for them. We can build your website. We can basically anything you need to make that happen. It's all in-house. Translations, translating the products. There's so much here that needs to be done. We carve that out and put that into a plan for you. We've got a success framework that we use, that we give everyone. So when you expand, you've got a framework that you can follow. Now, for anyone listening who wants to bootstrap and do it themselves, you just go and look, find Global E-commerce Experts on YouTube, our podcast. We've talked about everything, right? The 6 steps, the 7 steps, the success pathway. It's all there for you to go and absorb all the information. You'll have to listen to me drone on, and I apologize about that, but you will get all the information you need in how to successfully expand. If you're sat there thinking, I need my brand, I need to get into Europe, what do I need to do and what's the best way of doing that? We are the only team that can do it all under one roof. We're the only one, therefore, that can see holistically what you need to do about your brand and consult with you free of charge if you're using our services on what to do and how to do it. It's straightforward and easy. We're doing this day in, day out for thousands of brands. So the best way to reach out, go to any of the social media channels and put in Global E-commerce Experts. Or if you want to email us, you can email us at expand@globalecom, and that's double M, globalecomexperts.com. Expand at globalecomexperts.com, or just find me on LinkedIn, Andy Hooper, and I'll put you in with the right people.
Awesome. Well, we're going to add all that to the show notes. So anyone who's listened to both of us go this late into the fold, they'll see it there. But even if they land on it on our YouTube or any of the channels that we post out on, it'll all be there. Andy, I got to say, it's been awesome having you on, and really appreciated all the insights. I think there's a ton of learning for anyone that listens into this episode. And just really appreciate your time, mate.
No problem, Ralph. I appreciate yours. Thank you for everything you do. It's great to have another conversation with you because I always enjoy it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.